So let me know when you guys are ready. Hey, how you doing? All right, so I just wanted to give an update on the 2 homicides that we've recently had and also on some of the other activities that we've had in the city and talk a little bit about our plans for the summer and to take any questions that you all may have. But in relation to the most recent homicide that we had on Stanley Street, we have a person that has been arraigned on weapons-related charges, criminal possession of a weapon second and criminal possession of a weapon third. That person is in custody, and those charges are in relation to the homicide on Stanwix. Just for context with that issue, with that incident, apparently the victim in that case, Wendell Ponce, and the person we have in custody, Douglas Bynum, are acquaintances. They met at the home of a third person who was also an acquaintance of those two. They were having a get-together that night. Something escalated within this get-together, and it escalated to violence. And it turned out that Mr. Ponce was shot multiple times, and Mr. Bynum was also shot. And when officers arrived, Mr. Bynum was found a short distance away with gunshot wounds. So we, right now, are not at liberty to talk too much about any other circumstances related to that. Because it is still an open investigation. We're still trying to figure out the sequence of the shots, who fired, and to make sure that we get the appropriate charges if necessary against whoever else was involved. But the important thing for the community to know is that there are no other suspects in this case that are under consideration. We're not looking for any other suspects in this case. We're confident that all of the parties involved in that incident have been identified, and we will be making the appropriate charging decisions if that happens moving forward. With the incident at Madison and Grand, that one, in that incident, a person was standing on the street on the corner, and we have video evidence that shows that that person was specifically targeted by at least 2 people who walked up and shot that person on the corner. With that incident, again, this is another case of a person being specifically targeted. This was not some random incident. We have some other information that gives us confidence that that person was indeed targeted by somebody in that incident. And so we've got some very good leads and some very good information that's coming in through the community with that incident at Madison and Grand, as well as some video evidence that's very useful for us in determining who may be involved in that incident as well. And so, and as we say that, we talk about these 2 incidents. I think it's important to also get out there that we've taken nearly 60 guns off the street so far. We're only a third, just a little bit over a third of the way through the year, and we've taken 60 guns off the street, twice as many as we taken off the street this time last year. Our gun arrests are up 56%. Our shooting incidents and shooting victims are slightly up. But the message that we want to convey is that our officers in this community are working together to address this issue that we're seeing. And the issue is a proliferation of guns in our communities and a willingness for people to use those guns. We're seeing in the vast majority of these cases that individuals are not resolving conflicts in a peaceful way. And instead, they're using these handguns as a way to resolve these conflicts. Now, we have most of the information that we have is anecdotal, but before we started to see this proliferation of guns in the streets, we were seeing the same sorts in the same pace of conflicts between people. But we just weren't seeing people shooting each other at the rate that we're seeing them shoot each other as a result of these conflicts. And so that's why it's been critically important for us to have the help and assistance of the members of our community. And in many of these cases where we've arrested these individuals for having these weapons, they've come in through tips. People are calling us. People are anonymously giving us information. They're networking through other various means to make sure that we get the information that we need to identify some of these people. And so I'm very, very proud of the work that the police officers in this community and the members of this community have done in working together in order to address this crime that has really ravished the entire country. So I'm willing to take any questions that you have.
Chief,
yes.
It's been roughly 2 years since, as you mentioned, the country has seen an uptick in gun violence and crime. Can you offer an update today on how the state, so far, the state efforts, how your department is maybe working with the resources that the state has made available to combat this new spurt of gun violence?
So the biggest help and assistance that we've gotten from the state has been with resources, information, and in some cases equipment. For example, if we have hot spots or if we have a situation where we need additional staffing, the state has, there's been no hesitation whatsoever from the state in helping us to get resources from the state police. We've had help from other law enforcement agencies. The U.S. Attorney's Office, for example, has been very helpful in helping us to identify which of these crimes qualify for federal prosecution. It's very well known from some of these individuals on the street that these penalties are usually much stiffer for some of these handgun-related crimes at the federal level. And so the U.S. Attorney has been very helpful in assisting us in identifying which of those cases qualify. I don't have the exact numbers of which ones they are, but some of those cases have actually been elevated to federal crimes. And so we've gotten some assistance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are these handguns legal handguns or are they most of them illegal handguns that's happening?
We're seeing a little bit of both. Some of these weapons are stolen. It's just very hard to track exactly how they got into our city, how they got into this state. So that's one of the things that we're doing right now is that we're really connected in a more meaningful way with the DEA, for example, and some of these federal agencies that deal with some of these weapons that are coming from out state. The ATF, for example, I just had a meeting not too long ago with the head of this region's ATF to talk about these weapons that are coming into our city. Where are they coming from? What strategies we can use to identify them. We have a crime analysis center that's tracking these weapons as well. And so preliminarily what we're hearing is that a lot of these weapons are actually coming from within the state. There's some that, again, that are stolen and coming from outside, but we're working with all of these agencies, both local and federal, to really figure out where they're coming from and see if we can stem the tide of these weapons coming in.
And then obviously in the Stanley Street investigation, I know it's still pretty early, I know there's certain things you can't release, and you were saying that Bynum was also suffering from gunshot wounds, and there was, I guess, a fight between the two individuals. Do you believe that they were both shooting at one another?
And right now, we can't conclusively say one way or the other. That's why I'm very reluctant right now to put out too much information on that. But what I am confident about is that we know who all the players are, and there's no threat to the community whatsoever. It's just a matter of, we've had two guns. You got a gun that was found inside the home. We've got a gun that was found outside of the home. Were both of those weapons used? We haven't gotten ballistics back yet to see exactly which weapon was used on either party. And so until we get that sort of information, it's going to take some time for us to determine what the actual charging decisions will be, more than what we have right now. But we have the players. We have all the players that were involved, and we're confident that very, very shortly we'll sort out exactly who shot who and what weapons were involved in this.
All right. And then I was looking at the press release just to make sure I had everything correct. Was it Bynum was located, was it like on Bogart Terrace at 120? Was that the same night Wednesday morning, was it the same day?
Yeah, yep, same time. Within, not too long after the officers discovered the scene on Stanwicks, they discovered Bynum nearby.
And then just in general, I mean, it's no secret that when the weather gets warmer, unfortunately, crime does increase. Just talk about your overall efforts to combat violence, given what's happened the last week and even with the summer months.
What we've been doing have been working. You know, we've almost got double the weapons off the street than we had last year. 50% increase in the number of gun arrests from last year. Our closure rate on a lot of these cases is in the 90s plus. So in the vast majority of the cases of violence that we have in this city, we identify a suspect and we arrest and charge those suspects. And the reason we're able to do that is because we get so much help from the members of this community. Our officers are working hard, and members of the community are working with them in order to do that. So to answer your question, we've got to continue doing what we've been doing. You know, we have to include the community in all of our law enforcement efforts. You know, a lot of these crimes that we're seeing are crimes that a police officer can't necessarily prevent. You know, how do you prevent a private party where two people or more get into some sort of argument and it escalates unnecessarily to violence and two people get shot? You know, we've had instances where a person has gotten killed in our city simply because somebody thought the person was taking a picture of them with their cell phone. You know, so we have that sort of senseless violence that we're seeing. And we're asking, and we have asked, and the community has answered, for more help in helping people to resolve these conflicts in a more peaceful manner. And we were seeing this. You know, we were seeing that up until, you know, the last couple of days or so. And we're hopeful that, you know, as we get into the summer, that, you know, these efforts of involving the community, making sure the officers are equipped and supported. Our partners in law enforcement, making sure that we're connecting and sharing information is critical. You know, what's happening in Albany is also happening in other communities. You know, where are the connections? You know, are we connected with the law enforcement universe in sharing information? And so all of those things come into play, but it's just so disheartening to see so many people get hurt or killed because interpersonal conflicts just needlessly and senselessly escalate into violence. And we're seeing it over and over and over again. And, you know, we're doing our part. The community is doing their part. I think we're on the right path. But it's just a matter of continuing to get this message out and continuing to reinforce that that's really at the root of a lot of things that we're seeing.
And do you think you guys are going to increase patrols in certain areas of the city as well?
Absolutely. You know, as we do every year, you know, it's a data-based approach to how we utilize our scarce resources. And so if we know that there's actual hotspots or potential hotspots, then, you know, we're doing some extra work in those areas. You know, a lot of it is not necessarily flooding the area with police officers, but sometimes it's making some connections in some of those neighborhoods and working on some conflict resolution type things, working on some ways of connecting with other resources to kind of mitigate the chances of violence occurring in some of those communities. And so we started that, you know, a month or so ago, and we'll continue that throughout the year. You know, I'm optimistic, you know, as we move forward. I mean, you know, this is a vibrant city. You know, there's a lot of people in this city. It's a very diverse city. We have great people in the city, but we have, just like every other city in America, there are a small handful of individuals who don't resolve their conflicts in a peaceful manner. And they put themselves and others at risk, and it's just a matter of us, you know, identifying who those individuals are, taking those individuals off the street and sending a message that, you know, that sort of violence is not going to be accepted in this community. And I think we've been doing a great job of that. The officers and the members of this community working together.
And then obviously the weather's getting warmer. Do you have any message for members of the community as they're going to be outside for the summer?
You know, enjoy the summer. It's a great time. It's a great city. There's a lot of things going on, over these next couple of weeks. And as we get into June, there's a lot of things that are going on. I mean, enjoy the city, enjoy the summer. But just keep in mind that we can keep the city safe and make the city even safer if we continue working together, continue sharing information. And I see that happening.
Any update on the ATVs and dirt bikes situation in the city? That always comes back in the warmer weather too.
Yeah, they're a menace. They're a public safety hazard in our community. It's a very difficult problem to address because when you get 24 dirt bikers or ATVers who are surrounding police cars in some cases, and it's difficult to have any enforcement and to deal with those. But we've had some successes. We've taken some off the street. We have a hotline now that allows us to get information from the community about where they're being stored. When are these events being scheduled? See, that's what's more important to us because now we can take a more proactive approach in taking them off the street. We can catch them when they're unloading, for example, or if they're bringing in these trailers full of these ATVs and dirt bikes, we can intercept the trailer or catch the trailer when the trailer stops and then prevent this from happening. Gas stations, they have to fuel someplace, so getting information about where they're fueling these things so that we can intercede in a way that won't pose any more risk to the community. So we've got some fairly innovative ways of dealing with this. We've got a lot of help from the community. I haven't monitored the hotline and got any updates recently on it, but I know we have gotten some tips with it, and so I think that has to be the strategy moving forward. Get this information, take some off the street, send a message that this won't be tolerated, prosecute when we can, and hopefully we can put a dent in this problem.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.